Today we're taking a look at a gaming monitor from a newer name, specifically in the monitor space, but definitely not in the PC gaming scene, in Galax. And Galax is extremely well known for their graphics cards, specifically their Hall of Fame series of cards, which have some super creative and innovative design and tech built into those graphics cards. You can definitely check those out when it comes to like NVIDIA 30 series and of course NVIDIA 40 series, now that those cards are soon to launch as well. But overall, this is really their first foray into gaming monitors. In this particular model, the Vivance-01, it's a 27-inch 1440p IPS panel capable of 165 Hz refresh rate, 1 millisecond response time. And the features don't end there. It tacks on NVIDIA G-Sync compatibility, HDR support, and 95% DCI-P3 color coverage, meaning it's perfect for both creators and gamers alike. So let's get this thing out of the box and show you guys how it looks. So now we can take a look at everything that comes in the box. We have a HDMI or DisplayPort cable. Let's see what comes with the monitor. I believe it's going to be DisplayPort to DisplayPort. Very nice that this is included with your monitor, so you don't have to go out and purchase an extra cable. You have your power adapter for our power brick. So it's an external brick versus having the brick kind of as a part of the monitor itself, but it's just a 12-volt output so that you can, of course, power the monitor. Pretty nice design. You're never going to see it, but it's there. And then when it comes to our stand, it's a two-piece design, very nice and slim and nice and thin. And overall, it is solidly built. It's like some kind of metal. Overall, decently hefty for being this small. So all I believe you have to do is just clip it in. There's a little Phillips head at the bottom to tighten it up. And that is it. And that is our stand. So now it's time to, of course, get the panel out of our styrofoam. Very nicely packaged, not too heavy when it comes to overall like packaging material or anything like that. Not kind of overusing anything in terms of, wasting materials or overdoing it on cardboard or anything like that. So if we take this out of our plastic covering, so let's show you guys the actual mounting mechanism that is a part of the monitor. So as you can see, there's these two little clips at the top of the stand itself. All we have to do is slot those into the back of the panel. And that is it for the actual installation of the panel. And there we have it. This thing looks slick. So no complaints when it comes to build quality or the ease of putting this thing together. Super simple right out of the box. But there are some limitations to this particular design, especially when it comes to the stand and specifically around ergonomics. So all we really have on this stand is vertical tilt. So you can see we have a decent amount of tilt in this direction. And then you do have some downward tilt as well, so that you can kind of get the angle right for the way that you're sitting at your desk and viewing this monitor. But there's no horizontal tilt on the stand at all. There's no height adjust. The horizontal angle adjustment isn't the biggest deal in the world. I would, however, have liked to see height adjust on this stand just to make it usable in the majority of situations and for the most amount of people. But you can always, of course, go out and purchase a third-party stand or a VESA mount and attach it to a desk or a wall, and then you have kind of full maneuverability of this display, which is probably what I'm going to do. And of course, the monitor has threaded inserts for a VESA mount. So I'll show you all of that once we get this thing mounted to my desk setup. But jumping into the design of the actual panel and the display, there are very slim bezels on this monitor, a very nice and slim bottom chin with a very subdued Galax logo. Overall, I really like the design of this monitor. It's super thin out of the box compared to some other monitors that have more of a bulky back to either include a power supply built into the back of the monitor or have a little bit more cooling on the panel. Overall, this thing is extremely slim. And taking a look at the back of the monitor, some really nice angled features. Some of the versions do come with an RGB backlight, which is super nice and looks really, really clean on this display. And when it comes to on-screen display control and menu navigation, you do have a joystick style controller as well. And a weird added feature on the back of this monitor is a G-Sync on-off switch. All you have to do is hit the button on the back of your monitor and you're able to turn G-Sync on and off. It's a intriguing included feature. I don't know that I will use it very much, but for some people, maybe that is a added benefit depending on the game you're playing or the situation you're playing the game in. Maybe you want G-Sync on in more of a really high refresh rate style game, and maybe you don't need it on in certain other games, so you can limit the taxation on the monitor itself. Overall, I don't know how much I'll use it, but it is there in case you do want it. And finally, let's take a look at the port selection on this monitor. We have our 12 volt DC in. We also have two HDMI 2.0 connectors along with two DisplayPort connectors, so you can take full advantage of several devices being plugged into this monitor. And we also get an audio out connector so that you can hook up headphones directly into the monitor. So that's an overview of the Vivance-01, but it's time to see how this thing performs in games, in content creation, content consumption. So let's hook it up to my 3080 Ti and see how this thing performs. So I've had the Vivance-01 as part of my gaming setup for the past couple of weeks. And it's been really enjoyable to play on, but I want to show you guys some of the core features and functionalities of the monitor, including the on-screen display and some other functionalities. And then we'll jump into performance, both with some benchmarks as well as some games. So when it comes to the on-screen display on the Galax Vivance-01, you have a lot of functionality with the joystick. So if you hit right on the joystick, you can have direct access to the contrast and brightness of the monitor. And then to get out of there, you can of course just hit left and it'll close out. Now the peak brightness on the Vivance-01 is around 350 nits, which is plenty bright for the majority of situations, and you probably don't need any brighter unless you're trying to get some super accurate and vibrant HDR modes in order to get some really bright brights in certain scenes. But overall, the brightness is really, really nice on this monitor. And if we jump in and hit left, then we have direct access to all of our inputs. You can of course leave it on auto detect and it'll see which device is outputting display, but you have your two DisplayPort and then your two HDMI signals there as well. And finally, if we hit up on the joystick, then we have access to all of our different video modes. You have standard, a few different game functions, which we can show you. So if we click on game, you have FPS 1, 2, and 3, RTS, night vision for a darker room. It'll kind of bring down the brightness. And then you have gamer 1, 2, and 3. You kind of just have to play around with these to see exactly what they're going to look like and what you kind of like when you're playing games. And then you also have movie mode, which kind of goes for pure color accuracy and brings down the brightness a bit. Same with web and text. They're both kind of meant for reading, so they bring the brightness down a lot and increase the contrast. But I'll leave it in standard for now. So there we go. Very, very color accurate out of the box. Again, 95% DCI-P3 color coverage, 100% sRGB. So a very, very color accurate monitor that is also amazing for games. And finally, if we hit down, then we do get our on-screen crosshair if you do like that kind of functionality in a monitor. Now, the one thing that is a little bit weird is even though all of these different menu options, you have profiles, pictures, color, audio, input, and settings, they go left to right, but you actually click up and down on the joystick in order to move over. So you have your different profiles, which we just went through, different picture modes, so you can change sharpness, blue light filter, aspect ratio, response time, G-Sync. So I have response time right now set to medium or middle, but you can go high on response time and maybe get a little bit of overshoot, but you're gonna get a really quick pixel response time. And then G-Sync is on by default. And if we go to color, you have contrast and brightness, color temperature, so you can go warm, cool, and standard, and then also HDR, which is set to auto HDR out of the box. Then you have volume and audio settings, you have your different inputs, and finally you have settings where you can change things like language, resolution notice of whether it's 1440p or 1080 from whatever is inputting to the display. You have your OSD size, so you can actually make this bigger so you can see it a little bit better, auto power off, sleep, and reset. But now that we've gotten through all of that, let's jump into some of the core features of this monitor, which are HDR support. So we'll see how good the HDR is on this display. We'll also take a look at pixel response time with the UFO test, as well as some backlight bleed on this IPS panel to see if we're getting kind of any whites coming through on black scenes. So let's jump into a quick HDR test first. Over on the right side, you have the HDR, and over on the left, it's non-HDR, and you can definitely see that the colors and the contrast of the scene, where it's supposed to be dark, it's dark. The brights aren't amazing, so you're not getting that full HDR, but it is pretty decent for a mid-tier gaming monitor. And jumping into a game that would really be able to take advantage of the color accuracy of this panel, like a game in Elden Ring, you can see in this particular scene, or you could just see that there is definitely some pixel overshoot, meaning that there's some artifacting on the screen. As you kind of pan between scenes, some blacks kind of trail around in the scene. I believe it's due to the response time setting, so I moved it from middle to off, and now with that completely changed, there's no more overshoot of the pixels, and the scene looks a lot cleaner. And you can also see in Elden Ring, the colors are really, really nice. This game is definitely not going to take full advantage of 165 hertz, being limited to 60, but you can definitely take advantage of the color accuracy of this display. The scenes look amazing, the colors look great, and even though it's not the most vibrant, oversaturated game, it does look really, really nice on this display. And the Vivance-01 definitely doesn't stop at color accuracy. It has a very good setup when it comes to pixel response time. So you can see in this UFO test, the top line at 165 hertz, there's very, very minimal trailing and leading edge on that UFO. Of course, at the 83 FPS, you can see where it starts to trail. You see those little jumps, and there are trails and leading edges on each UFO. But at 165 hertz, this looks amazing. Very, very limited pixel response time, which is awesome. And we're also not just limited to 165 hertz refresh rate on this panel. If you're looking to use this for, let's say, something like a PS5 or Xbox Series X, the monitor does support both 165, 144, 120, and even 60 hertz. So a lot of refresh rates to choose from on this display. And that's why we're going to jump into a game like Valorant, where we can take full advantage of those response times and the refresh rate. So even though we're hitting well over 200 to even 300 FPS in the game, we're able to utilize the full G-Sync compatibility of this display, and it is officially supported on NVIDIA's website to be G-Sync compatible, so that if we have any dips or we have any jumps in FPS, the monitor is able to mimic what is ever coming out of our GPU. So overall, I mean, there's no smearing, no smudging, no artifacting really whatsoever on this display, especially once we went in and changed that response time setting in Elden Ring. So overall, I have zero complaints with the performance and capabilities of the display at 1440p. Again, the response times look amazing. With the Vivance-01 being Galax's first real test of the gaming monitor segment, I'm extremely impressed with its performance, feature set, and overall design. And when you take into account its $240 USD MSRP, it's an extremely tough monitor to beat at that 1440p 27-inch sweet spot. Now, it is extremely difficult to find these monitors right now. They are pretty sparse, but if you can find one, even for less than 300 USD, this is an extremely good deal. And this will be the first video where I actually give a score or a rating to one of the gaming monitors I've reviewed, but I have gone back and backdated all of my previous gaming monitors, specifically in the 1440p segment, so we can get a better idea of where this monitor fits in. And I'm rating all of these monitors on performance, such as refresh rate, response time, and color accuracy, feature set like G-Sync, HDR, and the type of panel, IPS or TN or VA. And then I'm also taking a look at things like price, of course, build quality, connectivity, ergonomics, and navigation of the on-screen display. So overall, each one of those has a different weight, with performance being the most important, going down through features, price, build quality, connectivity, ergonomics, and navigation. So overall, this monitor rated in as the top panel I've tested so far, with it scoring extremely well when it comes to price, performance, build quality, etc. Overall, this monitor has been extremely good. There are some drawbacks that get taken into account in that score, with the lack of adjustability when it comes to the stand that is included, the HDR not being super great, some issues when it came to overshoot, and some response time issues depending on the settings of the display. But overall, there is a lot of adjustability, connectivity options, and just overall really, really good performance out of this monitor. So anything from an 8 to a 10 is a buy. Anything from a 7 to an 8 is a buy, but maybe wait till it's on sale. Anything less than a 7 I probably avoid. But this guy came in at right around 8.2, so it's definitely a buy in my book. So if you can find yourself a Vivance-01 for right around that MSRP mark, it's kind of the king of budget 1440p monitors. So many amazing features at that price. But even if you have to spend a little bit more, it is still a very, very competitive monitor. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, get subscribed to the channel, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.